Hey guys, Krigo here. I figured out an easy strategy for beating the first challenge tier of the Forest Moon Assault battle with a basic Empire squad at Gear 11 and Gear 12, and I wanted to pass the word along. I doubt this will be new information, and a lot of people may have already figured out this same strategy on their own, but I figured it out for myself, so for all intents and purposes, this is my strategy. Fight me. Anyway, the comp for this team is Palpatine lead with his leadership Zeta, Vader, Tarkin, TIE Fighter pilot, and Thrawn with a Zeta on Ebb and Flow. I have a Zeta on Inspiring Through Fear, which is why the power of this team may appear higher than you'd expect, but the only Zetas doing any work are the ones on Palpatine and Thrawn. Both are required for this strategy to work effectively. I'm going to flash my gear and mods across the screen here just so you can get an idea of what kind of stats I'm playing with. My Empire squad used to be my arena team about, 2 years ago, but they've been in a state of disuse ever since Zeta Bastila and Jedi Knight Revan came along, so their mods have suffered accordingly and their gear has not improved in a long time. If my crummy, barely passably modded Empire team with a single Zeta Papa Palpatine lead can get the job done, I fully believe that yours can too. So let's jump right into it. You will likely have to back out and restart several times at the beginning to get an attempt that'll work for you, and that's kind of to be expected. My usual benchmark is no one is dead or below half health by the time I take my first turn. Anything worse than that is usually too much of a disadvantage, and you'd be better off saving yourself the time and restarting. There are only two encounters in the entire assault battle that should give you a hard time: Battle 4 and Battle 8. We'll be focusing mainly on Battle 4 because there's really nothing special about Battle 8. It's the same as the bonus tier but with better geared enemies. Not easy, but no gimmicks or unusual mechanics to worry about outside of the usual Ewok shenanigans. If you have a decent understanding of the Empire team and a little bit of luck, you should be fine. Battle 4, on the other hand, has auto-kill mechanics that require deliberate strategy to properly counter. What I'll be describing is easily applied to Battle 8 as well, so I'll include a few tips and tricks for that encounter towards the end of the video. The strategy is the same as it always is with Empire for the first 3 battles. You might get a little roughed up, but unless you've got some really bad RNG, things shouldn't get real until you make it to Tebow in Battle 4. He's the same as he is in the old bonus tier, but with some notable improvements. He no longer moves at the speed of a heavily sedated turtle, and will take turns about as fast as your own team if you lose control of him. And yes, he can still insta-kill anyone that he touches. He's also a Gear 13 boss now, so he's way tankier than he used to be. Here's the trick. You need to hold Tebow under Fracture before he can get stealth. His leadership ability is in effect, so he may naturally go under stealth at the beginning of any of his turns. If he does, and either one of the elders are still alive, you can no longer control him and your attempt is over. Restart and save yourself some time. Once Tebow is under Fracture, the challenge tier has extra mechanics that allow you to keep him there indefinitely. While an enemy is fractured, Thrawn's speed is reduced by 50%, and Empire allies gain 15% turn meter every time they use a special ability, while Thrawn and his fractured target lose 15% turn meter. The trick in this assault battle that makes these more difficult enemies useless is that every character gets a new special ability, Defend. Every character gets their own instance of it with their own 2-turn cooldown. And yes, it does count towards Thrawn's turn meter manipulation from his Ebb and Flow ability. With the special Defend ability added into the mix, you can mindlessly click the buttons for your special attacks on a perfect cycle while never having to use a basic attack, which will infinitely drain Thrawn and Tebow's turn meter more quickly than it can fill, and at the end of it, Tebow will be dead without ever having taken a turn. A couple important notes. There are a few exceptions to the never use a basic attack rule that makes this strategy work a lot more smoothly. While Thrawn's speed is reduced, he's not immune to bonus turn meter, and because of this, there are a few important mechanics you need to keep track of and control for. First, both Ewok Elders can cleanse debuffs from the entire enemy team. If this happens when you've already got tons of debuffs floating around on all three characters, it means Thrawn is going to gain a ton of bonus turn meter from Palpatine's leadership, and you're probably going to lose your Fracture. You can prevent this from happening with some intelligent ability blocks. Using a basic from Vader or targeting one of the Elders with TIE Pilot's special attack are your two most readily available options here. Second, whenever you use Vader's Culling Blade and dispel all debuffs on the target, Thrawn will gain turn meter once again. If you've got too many special abilities on cooldown to quickly drain it again, this can mean losing your Fracture. If you're strategic about it, you can avoid this completely, but if Thrawn already has more than 40% turn meter, it's probably a good idea to use a basic attack to maintain control instead. It'll give you an opportunity to get an ability block on one of the Elders and kick the can down the road a little bit further. If you mess up and do lose your Fracture, don't give up. As long as your Thrawn is decently fast and you've got his second special off cooldown, you might be able to salvage the run. The option tree of possible moves is kind of complicated here, but to simplify, swap turn meter with Vader if he's lined up to use his Force Choke and Culling Blade double turn, but otherwise swap turn meter with the ally who has the highest turn meter so that Thrawn takes a second turn as quickly as possible. If you can find a little turn meter reduction for the enemy team and a little turn meter gain for your own, you can regain control of Teebo before he takes a turn and put him safely under Fracture once again. And that's it! You beat Battle 4 without having to do much of anything. Congratulations. I promised a few tips on how this strategy can get you through Battle 8, so pick the Ewok that gives you the hardest time and do the exact same thing that you did in Battle 4. I usually recommend fracturing Logray since he puts daze on your entire squad with his special ability, and that all but shuts down all of the mechanics that make anything about a Papa Palpatine squad work. If you do choose Logray, don't forget to keep a shock debuff on Poplu so you can still go after Elder with impunity. After Elder and Logray go down, I'd probably move your Fracture over to Chief Chirpa as soon as possible to prevent him from spreading buffs and calling mass assists. On all the other tiers, not that big of a deal, but every one of those little taps from the Murder Bears hurts on Challenge tier. Aside from that, always remember not to get discouraged. I have a love-hate relationship with this game, and I fully believe that it is designed to be as frustrating as possible to railroad you into spending as much money as you've got to burn. The challenge tiers are always going to be a crapshoot from the beginning when you're using an undergeared team, but the satisfaction of winning is so much more intense when you do it, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that's all I had for you today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll be happy to respond in as much detail as I can. Stay safe and healthy during quarantine, and hopefully you'll be seeing more from me soon.